I'm Corbett Wall with DV Auction, here with your feeder flash for Thursday, June the 22nd. And we're just here in the middle to latter part of the week. We've had a lot of interesting news about the industry come out this week. Earlier we heard that JBS would be selling the Five Rivers Feeding Corporation, which is the biggest in the nation by far, nearly 1 million head feeding capacity there. So that kind of shook things up and made everybody kind of take a look at the industry. And then on Wednesday here we heard that McVane Trading and Investments was going to be fined $5 million by CFTC for really overly supporting the live cattle contract on the CME futures. And not everybody really gets into looking at this, but kind of give you a little background on that. McVane Trading is one of the biggest, or the biggest, handler of risk management and investments for our biggest cattle feeders. Not necessarily our corporates, but our biggest independent cattle feeders, our big dogs in the cattle business, and have been for a long time. Charlie McVane is one of the smartest people that I've ever met, as far as markets and the board and how they are all intertwined and things like that. And I guarantee you, from knowing somewhat how they do their business, and the way that I got acquainted with them was several years ago when I was a USDA livestock grader. I graded jillions of cattle for McVane as they were taking delivery of them, as they were one of the few that took delivery of cattle. There were people that were wanting to deliver cattle on the board in a short position, but McVane would be on the long side. And you think, why would they be on the long side if they were handling risk management? The reason they were on the long side and taking those contracts all the way to maturity and making them deliver is because they were trying to keep the market honest. They've always tried to do that, keep the market honest. They know that they're outnumbered a long ways by all this fund money that's coming in and pushing down on the board. Of course, there's a lot of hedge pressure on the board all the time. But they were trying to keep things honest, And it's funny how all this fund money can just jump in and short the board and just roll it and roll it and roll it down. But they don't get in any kind of a trouble. But supposedly McVane overextended their limits, position limits, on being on the long side of the board. They were always betting on the cattle market, always betting on the cowboy, on the cattleman. And they did far exceed their personal limits as a trading company, but they were handling the investments and the risk management for countless cattle feeders. And I'll guarantee you, they didn't fall under this penalty by being ignorant or thinking that they were outsmarting somebody. They did it because they believed they were right within the rules, within the laws of the CME group there. And that's the way they've always been. They always pushed the rules to the limit when they were taking delivery of cattle. They always pushed the rules to the limit. They knew that the rules were there. They knew the rules better than anybody else, and they always tested those and just to make sure that everything was on the up and up. I know in 2009, in that December delivery period, I myself graded 100 loads of cattle that McVane was taking delivery of, and there was a half a dozen of us graders there. But Sam Gilmore was always there representing McVane at delivery. He was always professional, always testing the limits of the rules. And I guarantee you, they didn't think they were doing anything over anybody's eyes. They felt like they were within their rules and their rights is the reason they would have done something like that. And if they overextended their limits, they probably felt like all these other people that they were handling their portfolio for included their limits. And but it's sad to see the people in the cattle business Memphis Charlie, they call him Memphis Charlie affectionately because he's from Memphis, Tennessee, and has always kept his offices there. and they owe him a debt of gratitude. He's always been a champion for the cattleman, for the cattle business, for the cattle feeder. But to me, it just looking from what I've seen of it, it looks a whole lot like Pete Rose getting penalized for betting on his own team. He never, you know, they always said he never bet against his own team. That would have been wrong. But, you know, he was all in. And that's the way Memphis Charlie was, you know, pulling the Texas hedge and being long cattle and buying the board. That's probably what he was guilty of more than anything. But you know, Memphis Charlie and Charlie Hustle have a whole lot in common, it looks like, in this whole deal. But you look at the board, it was kind of mixed on Wednesday. Live cattle futures, August was down 55, the June was down 85, and that just goes to show you right here, it just looks like your guys that are maneuvering the board, that are pushing the board, they're just looking for round numbers to hit. They take it to $1.20. They take it to, you know, it closed on Wednesday at $1.1950. They're just trying to get it to where the board's where the cash is gonna end up and be close in there. But it's not just a whole conglomeration of people pushing and pulling the board. It's people that are just taking it to a target point. And that's one of the things that McBain was always against, is all these big shorts just taking the board wherever they wanted it to and not really ringing true to what was going on in the real world. But 119.50, I guess, is where they think they're going to take this cattle market here as far as Wednesday at the close. They're probably going to take it down further. But we've had a lot of losses already in the fat cattle market on a cash basis. I've had live sales in Southern Plains, in Colorado, and even up in the western parts of Nebraska and Wyoming and places, from 121 to 122. How much lower you want to call that? From late in the week, it's like $5 to $6 lower. From the bulk of trade last week, it's even more than that. Your weighted average was over 130, so that's $8 or $9 lower from the weighted average. But late in the week, we had trade from 126, 127. Your dress sales, we've already had a few there, not nearly as many as we have on the live side, but seen a few dress sales from 193 to 196. How much lower you want to call that? Maybe $9 to $12 lower here in early week trading. You think this thing ain't sour and sick? Box beef cutout values have now started to fade, and they're fading with every day's trade, and quite a bit lower here middle of the week also, but going to be significant losses there, which we knew that was coming. You look at your feeder cattle markets, your real-time index late Wednesday was sitting at 143.41, down $1.54, but not really down much from the close of last week. So your markets are kind of settling into where they are right now, and there hasn't been a big market push on your cash feeders one way or the other this week. Just trying to see where they were at from last week's tough time. But there's such a small pool right now because we're seeing such light numbers in the sale barns, and not a lot of cattle going into these indices, whether it's on your real-time index or even your CME index. But you look at that small pool on Beef Market Central's RTI there, the weighted average on your weights have gone up 15 pounds from the previous day to 818, and that just shows you how small the pool is, and so really you could tack maybe $1 or so on that market, because that's set for an 800-pound steer, but it's all the way up to 818. You look at your CME index, and it's still all the way up there at 148, and it's pretty tough to consistently get 148 for an 800-pound steer, especially if you look through the whole 12 states there where they're pulled from. But you look at some markets on Wednesday there, over 5,000 head of yearlings in OKC West, Del Reno there. Feeder steers mostly steady. Some of your feeder steers, yearlings weighing under 8, were $2 to $4 higher, just trying to get equaled out with what your other markets are. Feeder heifers were $1 to $3 lower. The calves on Tuesday were 5 to 10 higher. Calf demand is not good at all. You know, most of your cattle are turned out right now, and why would you want a balling calf or even a weaned fleshy calf this time of year when it's hotter than heck and they're going to melt? and you've got your pastures full. If you're running any kind of an operation, you're going to have to dry lot those cattle. And how much fun is it to put a calf shut up in a yard whenever it's 100 degrees outside, and they're going to get sick and they're going to melt. Calf demand is really waning right now. When you see yearlings, especially in big bunches, they sell good this time of year, and I think they will continue to, and we should see some support for your cash yearling market whenever we get closer into when those double stock yearlings, green grass yearlings, come off Flint Hill and Osage pastures here working into July. But you look at the report out of El Reno there on Beef Market Central, you can see there how, and don't pay any attention to the calf weights because of course they sell on Tuesday there, but on Wednesday here in your yearling weights and your feeder weights, 1,700 8-weight steers averaging 139.33. That gives you an idea where we're at after we've seen these tough losses here the last few weeks. 900 head of 7-weight heifers averaging 136.15. Dodge City, Kansas had a light run, 1,300 head. Feeders there were firm to $5 higher because they had really sharp losses there last week. So market's just trying to kind of level out a little bit. Here on Thursday, look for Joplin Regional Stockyards value added sale. They've got 7,100 head on offer, starting that sale at 7:30 in the morning. Got lots of nice big consignments there. Looked at the list of consignments there. They've got over a dozen consignments of 100 head or more. So you could sure get in there and get you some cattle that you'd like. Look at an individual quote there on Wednesday. South Central Regional Stockyards in Vienna. I watched that sale some today there. David Patton was doing a good job auctioneering that sale. They had 70 head of steers, weighed 767 at 158 1/4. That's your feeder flash for Thursday.